Welcome to More Tales. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my dad meet my baby? My fiancé 30F and I recently got into it. Wait, let me start from the beginning properly. My 24F and my husband 25M recently had a beautiful baby girl a couple weeks ago. Us and both our families are extremely thrilled. Bringing a new life into the world is an incredible feeling, but the events that followed have completely thrown me off balance. A few hours after giving birth, word had gotten out to my extended family, and someone had told my dad. For context, me and my dad haven't spoken in 10 years due to the fact him and his new wife were extremely abusive to me, mainly because I had very high-spectrum ADHD and autism. Growing up in that environment was traumatizing, to say the least. My neurodivergence was treated like a burden, and I was constantly made to feel like I was broken. Going no contact was a decision that was very supported by my mom and stepdad and my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. My dad had no way of contacting me and didn't have my phone number either. Although I did keep contact with my cousins, who respected my decisions. At least, I genuinely believed they did. I then got a call from a random number that afternoon, while I was still in the hospital, and it ended up being my dad. The moment I answered, he didn't even ask how I was doing after labor. He then began to yell at me over the phone, asking why I didn't tell him I had a baby. My heart sank straight to my stomach. I became extremely anxious and began crying as his yelling had brought back extremely distressing memories of when I was a child. The tone of his voice was identical to the screams I used to hear in my childhood bedroom. He began to demand I let him and his wife come meet my child and persistently asked me what hospital I was in. I ended the phone call in a panic, and my husband immediately came to console me as I sobbed. I was shaking so hard that I could barely hold my daughter. My husband took my phone, blocked the number my dad had called me on, and held me tightly until I could breathe again. I was sent home the next day, hoping that leaving the hospital would put an end to the terror. Unfortunately, it did not stop there. A week after this interaction with my dad, I started to receive an array of messages from my dad's family and his wife on Facebook, telling me I was a raging cunt for not letting him see my child. The notification chimes on my phone started giving me instant panic attacks. His wife sent multiple paragraphs calling me ungrateful, claiming that whatever happened in the past was just tough love, and that I had no right to keep a grandfather away from his flesh and blood. Then came the betrayal from people I actually trusted. Even some of my cousins have messaged me long paragraphs telling me how selfish I am for not letting my dad meet his first grandchild. They wrote that blood is thicker than water, that he has changed, and that I need to grow up and let go of childhood grudges for the sake of the family. My husband and our families both think I'm doing the right thing. My mom and stepdad have been completely protective, offering to stand guard at our house if necessary, and my husband constantly reminds me that my priority is protecting our daughter from the same toxic environment I grew up in. They keep telling me that a person who abused a child does not magically earn the right to be around a baby just because of a biological link. Despite their constant reassurance, the pressure is taking a heavy toll on my mental health. I've been in such an anxious state since this had began, especially with my pregnancy hormones, and I keep worrying that I am the bad guy for not letting my dad meet her. Every time I look down at my newborn daughter, I feel a fierce need to protect her, but then I read another hostile message from a relative and feel overwhelmed by guilt. Am I the asshole? Update. Hey everyone, I have gotten so many supportive messages wishing myself and my new family well. But with support, there also comes hate. I received an extremely disgusting message from a user on here. The message basically attacked me for crying after my father's phone call, questioned how I could be a good mother while having autism and ADHD, and called me a weak, cowardly loser who was blaming everything on my disabilities. They even questioned why I would bring children into the world and suggested my daughter deserved better than me as a mother. Now, I do understand why people would disagree with the actions I took. I posted the situation online knowing that I would receive different opinions, and I'm completely capable of accepting criticism about my decisions. But calling me a bad mother because I have disabilities and because I had an emotional reaction to being contacted by someone who abused me for years is where I draw the line. What really got me was how much the message reminded me of my dad. My disabilities were only mentioned once in my original post, and I explained them because they were directly relevant to the abuse I experienced growing up. My father and his wife used my autism and ADHD against me, so seeing someone reduce me to those things and use them as proof that I'm somehow incapable of being a good mother was unbelievably hypocritical. The funniest part is that this person was apparently so concerned about saying these things publicly that they sent the message privately. If you're going to call someone a weak, cowardly loser while hiding behind a private message, I don't think you get to lecture me about strength. I understand that I posted my story online specifically to get outside opinions. That's fair. People are allowed to disagree with me. But completely ignoring the trauma I went through and turning my disabilities into an excuse to attack me is something else entirely. I am an extremely strong person. I went through emotional and physical abuse for 14 years of my life. I survived that, went no contact, built a completely different life for myself, married an amazing man, and now I have a beautiful baby girl. My disabilities haven't stopped me from doing any of that, and they certainly don't prevent me from being a good mother. The fact that I cried during a phone call from my abusive father while I was still in the hospital after giving birth doesn't suddenly erase everything I've accomplished. I had just gone through childbirth, was exhausted, and was confronted with someone who brought back years of incredibly distressing memories. Having an emotional response to that doesn't make me weak, and it certainly doesn't make me a bad mother. My daughter deserves a mother who protects her, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I don't want my father or his wife around her, and after everything that happened, I don't see any reason to change that decision just because she's his first grandchild. I do genuinely wish that person the best. Maybe one day they'll understand that using someone's disabilities as an insult doesn't make their argument stronger. Hopefully, they also never put their own children through what I had to go through. So please hush. I gave birth to an 8-pound watermelon, and both of us would like you to be quiet and look at the bigger picture. I know many people would disagree with me calling that person out, but I'm going to be honest, I don't really care. My chest hurts, I have a severe lack of sleep, a sore hoo-ha, and I need to wee all the time. People like this need to be called out. Let me have my peace, thanks. Thank you for visiting More Tales.